What are the causes and effects of global conflict? The four main causes of global conflict, I would say, are militarism, alliances, imperialism, and nationalism. As you can see, they're the main causes, MAIN. Talk about militarism first. Nations race to acquire more military power. For example, the United States increased their military might after many of the European countries had a tremendous gain in military technology and advancements. For example, the atomic bomb, which they dropped on Japan. Germany also increased their military might when the Nazi Party rose to power, and they broke the Treaty of Versailles, which is also a concern for other countries such as France and Britain. Since military power grew, countries would expand for more power, and this would anger other countries, and because countries do not like their own land being taken. Alliances. These alliances are the alliances that basically were before the war had started. They're pre-alliances before the war started. This is why the war had started. For example, Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy were all before the World War I had started. Same with France, Britain, and Russia. And these alliances were a huge deal into these world wars because if one country is in conflict with another country, and they're on two different alliances, one country asks for help, the other side has asked for help. It just brings more and more countries into a bigger conflict than it should be. And this turns into World War I and World War II. Imperialism essentially caused tensions between countries. It divided the people of Europe, not only Europe, just many, such as Japan. They imperialized Korea to be more loyal to their own country. And more land equals more power, and every country wants more power. And nationalism was probably the key factor into global conflicts because people would just be so devoted to their own country that they would fight for it. For example, Hitler began running policies based on nationalistic efforts, and the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand happened because Slavic groups were being oppressed in the empire, and they're so nationalistic about their own group that they wanted to form independent nation states, and they assassinated Archduke Franz Ferdinand. These are the causes of global conflict. Let's talk about the effects of global conflict. These are the most drastic changes of global conflict. Societal effects affected economy, demographic changes, and increased tensions between nations. Societal effects and affect economy. Many things such as new governments changed, the rise of communism started after World War II had ended, and new borders had to be replaced. And new laws and organizations had to be created after World War II happened, such as the creation of the United Nations and laws as like the Nuremberg laws that were against the Jewish were abolished. There's also many more things that countries did to make their own nation more fair. After World War II, more women were in the industry and were employed. This is basically the U.S. economy because the U.S. economy was drastically helped by World War II because it created more employed people to produce more war efforts in the industry, and more employed people means better economy. However, economy is usually worsened after global conflict because it takes a lot of money to resolve global conflict. You need a lot of money to put into weapons, ammo, even to put campaign propaganda, all of those. And it puts the economy at a huge loss and it needs to regenerate. When I say tensions are increased within nations, I mean that after the global conflict, it can sometimes lead to more conflict between more nations. For example, the Cold War, the United States and the USSR, it was a battle between communism and a democratic government. And the Cold War altogether had wars such as the Vietnamese War and the Korean War. Although Cold War did help space, global conflict, I feel like the Vietnamese War and Korean War were way worse because Vietnamese people, they saw Americans mainly as an enemy because they they destroyed many of the forests, many of the people, and Vietnamese were also being discriminated when they had to migrate to America. And in World War I, it also led to World War II because of the Treaty of Versailles and it being unsustainable, and the Nazi Party that rose to power. And it only took 21 years for a new war. And talk, it was the biggest war, World War II. Approximately 70 million people had died. That's 4% of the world's population. And many people were facing the deaths of their friends in World War I. And then 21 years later, they had to go through it again. That is crazy. So, in summary, global conflicts such as the World Wars are huge wars that devastated and killed many people. The causes of these wars range from alliances to nationalistic efforts. Of course, having huge wars that killed many people will have many effects. And the effects are such as societal changes, more tensions between nations, demographic changes, and economic changes. There's a lot of changes in the world that happens after global conflict. This is what the causes and effects of global conflict are.